Hey there, comic book friends. I'm Travis, and this is another edition of No Capes, where I talk about the comic books that don't have to do with superheroes and/or Ethan doesn't read them or doesn't review them along with me. First up, I am going to talk about BPRD Vampire Issue 2. Really digging this comic. I absolutely love Gabriel Bra and Fabio Moon's artwork. Anything that they're working on, I love it just for that, let alone what the story is. The story is interesting too. There's more kind of setup as Anders, our main character, is hunting for where this vampire cult that worships this particular goddess of witches. They're hunting that down. We kind of a history lesson of this castle and this other area and some people that were supposedly dead and not dead. You know, part of it is that kind of standard hunt for the vampire thing. It gives us a ton of background information on these people, these entities. It's almost like a history lesson in sort, because he is actually teamed up right now with the historian in the Czechoslovakian country that they're in, and it's really interesting, this town that they're kind of staying in when they go to do this investigation. There are no men that live in the town. It's all just women, because the town has been cursed. It has all kinds of bad luck. All the different wars that go on in the place, the men take the brunt of it, and so basically there just aren't any men and stuff, and it's really, really interesting. As far as that goes, like I said, the art is cool. They find the place they're looking for at the end of this. They kind of fall into it, really. And now I'm sure over the next 3 issues, the stuff is really going to hit the fan. Just really dig, like I said, the art. It's interesting, kind of a cool story. Not huge on vampires as a general rule, but like I said, the Gabriel Bra and Fabio Moon doing artwork. It's just, they have a style that's just cool. It's just cool to see this type of thing. They do well. They do well in a lot of the other independent type stories and stuff. Their art style, I can't imagine them necessarily doing a superhero comic, but this kind of thing, it's just really cool. And I'm digging it. I'm gonna buy what they produce. I'm at the point now with these guys in their career that if they're doing a book, I'm gonna buy it. If you're not familiar with the guys' work, go get Day Tripper. Go get it in trade. A lot of us put it in like our top 10, top 5 books to read. It's a comic book, an amazing comic book, a tearjerker of a comic book, quite frankly. It doesn't have to do with superheroes. It has to do with slice of life stuff, and it's great. You buy that, and I think you're going to be sold on anything else that comes along. Okay, next I'm going to talk about East of West Issue 2. More setup in this book. I think a lot of people kind of went, what happened? I think they thought there was going to be more than there was. In the first issue, there's this kind of vicious violence in the middle of it that kind of set up some of this world and wets our whistle, and so we figured this issue we should be jumping right into what it is. I don't think that's how Hickman really writes. I think with Hickman stories, to a large degree, you have to be in for the longer haul. This issue sets up even more, gives us more of a background, more information. There's things about it I'm really curious about. The groups of people that come together from the different countries, states that are part of what used to be the United States. They've obviously struck some sort of deal, not with the devil, but something along those lines, that kind of screwed Death over, and so now Death is pissed off and is coming to get people, basically, is the impression you get. He's going to hunt down these people that screwed him in some sense or another. I thought it was really interesting. I'm really curious as to what the message is. These people all get the message. I don't know that I'm interested in the 3 children that are part of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and they're staying on message, whatever the message is. And of course, it sounds like Death has kind of gone off the reservation as far as what the message is. He's doing his own He's wreaking his own retribution and stuff in it. And like I said, I don't know that I'm that interested in the kids part of it right now as much. That part seems a little flat. But when they all come together at the Armis place and get retold the message again, that of course we don't get the full information. That's what the message is. That's interesting. The Confederate States, Death shows up the Confederate States to wipe out the president of the Confederate States, and he attempts to strike a deal with them. I think that's really really interesting to see where that bargain goes. So yeah, it wasn't like a super exciting. There are some parts of the comic where they ask some questions or point out some odd failures or whatever, and they don't really explain to us why those are failures. I think those are justifiable criticisms of some of the stuff that's on the it's on the cover. This isn't the world we wanted, but this is the world we created. It's our fault, kind of a thing. Well, is it? With these powerful entities running around, I mean, those are justifiable criticisms, I think. But I'm still on board. I still think it's an interesting book. Looking forward to seeing where it goes. Artwork is cool. So yeah, so I'm still on board. I'm hoping next issue starts to get to the heart of the matter of some of this. But yeah, pretty cool all in all. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the end times of Bram and Ben. Issue 4 of 4, Ben Templesmith cover there. That's pretty cool. So this is the ending of this miniseries. It's got some funny twists and turns at this point in it. Basically, by issue 4, the criticisms I had about issue 1, the way it felt like I wasn't sure exactly what the authors were trying to say, what they were trying to poke fun at. And I had some issues in that if you go back and watch that review of how the non-Christian people were treated or written in the book. Basically like they show a picture of like Istanbul, Turkey, which we assume that the majority of the population is Muslim. They just went on with their day like nothing happened when the whole rapture came and stuff. And I questioned that. I was a little concerned with it. Almost felt like they were being bigoted in some sense or another. All that gets squared away in this final 4th issue. It's kind of a fun read. It's funny. It has some funny moments in it. The end of it's got a cute ending to it and stuff. Ben's girlfriend is hilarious while she's on drugs. Would I say rush out and buy this book? No, not necessarily, but it was fun. I'm not upset with spending the money on it. It ended up being better. Each issue I thought was better than the last issue as far as fun stuff and goes. The fact that the Antichrist in this thing, or one of the competing Antichrists, because Bram tries selling himself as the Antichrist. The other Antichrist that's in the book is a knockoff of Penn and Teller. I mean, they look exactly like Penn and Teller, and their names are something really close to Penn and Teller. I can't remember, something in Yeller, I think is what it is. I can't remember. But they're funny. It's funny having them be the Antichrist living in Las Vegas and using their evil uber magical powers to do card tricks and stuff, because they can't really just go outright and just use their magic and stuff, because of course no one would accept that. So that's all pretty cool and pretty funny. So not a bad miniseries as a whole. So yeah, it turned out better than it started, and that's always a good thing, right? When a series improves with each issue. So next up, talk about Jupiter's Legacy, issue 1. This landmark issue from Mark Millar and Frank Quietly. Got the book mostly because of the Frank Quietly art. I really like his artwork quite a bit. There's little nuances about his style that I really like. It's interesting. It has a substance and a weight of its own that I really enjoy. A bit iffy on Mark Millar's writing. I've never been really sold on most of the work that he's done. Love the premise, love the idea of this book, the fact you've got a second generation of superheroes. That's always appealed to me. What does it mean to be a second generation, superhero and that sort of thing. So that's all great and fine. We spend almost half of this comic setting up to get us to where we're at now. That's okay to give us some of that history. Going to some magic island, getting these powers and coming back, and you represent America and whatnot. It's like you've got a couple stories going on in the book. You've got the kind of disenfranchised youth superhero. They're the sons and daughters of these first superheroes, and then you've got the first superheroes themselves are still out there, still in charge. They're going through the motions they've been going through for the last, 40, 50 years, basically. And some of those heroes are questioning their motives as to why they continue to do the same thing when, look, we're right back where we were when we all became heroes in the first place, right after the stock market closed and everything was depressed. We're getting to have soup kitchens again. We're getting to have food lines and all this stuff. I mean, do we really improve anything, or shouldn't we be doing something else to improve the place better? Interesting stuff. Maybe a little heavy-handed on the social commentary as far as that stuff goes, but still, that kind of stuff does interest me. I love the superhero fight that's in this thing, the brawl. Even though it's this kind of simple brawl, I love the art of it. There's just something about this big guy there and all these little superheroes flying in and attacking and whatnot. There's just something that was really cool about that. Then you got this other half with this disenfranchised youth, and that part of the story really reminded me of John Hughes movies. If you're kind of my age, in the late 80s, early 90s era, he made a lot of films like Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which isn't really one of them, but like Breakfast Club. The whole Brat Pack type thing, those types of movies, the Less Than Zeros, which is somebody else made that movie, but anyway, that whole that's the feel of this. That's the feel of this thing. To me, it has that kind of feel. I mean, one of the main characters at the end of this looks like she ODs or something along those lines, crashes through. It just really has that that kind of a feel to it. Now, is that a good thing or not? I hate to say it, but I actually liked those movies back in the day. So, to some degree, I'm enjoying this. I mean, I enjoy the fact that you got this, the girl that's on the front cover, she collapses at the end of the thing. I'm curious to see what happens. I'm curious to see how that gets told. All the bits and pieces of this book, I think, can be extremely interesting and could be really fascinating, really, really cool story to tell, or it could be extremely heavy-handed and wrought with cliches and wrought with stereotypical crap. So I think it all is gonna be on the shoulders of the writer, what he chooses to tell. If he chooses to tell us something actually interesting about these people and this whole thing that he's got set up, this could be a really cool another look at superheroes. What does it mean to be a superhero, and all that kind of stuff, which I think is really fascinating after all the years of reading superhero comic books. I'm all for that. Or like I said, he just wade hip deep in all the typical tropes and stereotypes that are already there and make the whole thing blasé. So I figure we'll see in the next couple issues whether I stay on. I'm on the book for now. It's wet my whistle as far as things I'm really interested in, so I'm excited about that and what the possibilities are here, and I want to see if they come through with actually giving us that, or is it going to just be blah? If it's bland, then it's going to be really unfortunate and stuff. But I really dig the art. Frank Quitely's just got a kind of a queer art style to him. Everything's clearly defined as what it is, but he has a look, and I like that. I like the fact he has a defined look. Some of his work, in some ways, not not the context of his work, but the lines of his work reminds me of Mobius in some of Mobius's work, and that stuff of Mobius, that's that same line with these little dots and the fine lines and the texture that's there, really appeals to me. And so that's why Frank Quietly's stuff really appeals to me too. It has a piece of one of the facets of Mobius, and I really like that. So that's why I'm on board for the art, if nothing else, for right now. But I can get Frank Quietly art somewhere else in a more interesting story if Mark Millar decides to, go down the well-beaten path as opposed to giving us something different to think about and talk about. Okay, lastly, I want to talk about the massive issue 11. This is part 2 of 3 of Polaris. This is the Megalodon. Really like this issue. Still guest artists on it. This one actually is colored by Jordi Villari. I talked about this last time I was reviewing these books, and I mistakenly said that she had did the coloring for another one, which she hadn't. But this one she actually did the coloring for. I knew she did the coloring for some of them, I just couldn't remember which ones. Anyway, really cool story. If you like sharks, it's got lots of sharks in it. The shark imagery in this is dark and sinister and all of that, but the story itself, what's going on, is not that. Well, it is dark and sinister. It's dark and sinister in the fact that here are these sharks, these ocean animals and whatnot, and how they're suffering from the noise pollution that is in the ocean. It's something that gets talked about a little bit now. The Navy wants to test these sonar things. There are environmentalists saying don't run these sonar things because these sonar devices are driving the sea creatures crazy and whatnot. This has more to do with that because after the crash, everything's come down. There's so much chaos and noise just perpetually traveling through that it's causing mass kill-offs of some things and whatnot. And all of these sharks are swarming together, and you get a megalodon. I don't know if you're familiar with a megalodon. Megalodon is a prehistoric shark. I mean, they supposedly don't exist anymore. Megalodon sharks are like the size of 4 or 5 school buses put together. They are the dinosaur of sharks. They were these massive creatures that make great whites, look like minnows, and their size. And there's just some incredible imagery here of these sharks. These are all great whites, and if I can get the glare off of it, and that is a megalodon swimming amongst them. It comes up out of the deeps because all the sharks go down into the deeps to try and get away from the noise pollution, but they can't, and so they rise back up again. And it's amazing. At one point in the book, okay, so you see this shadow. This shadow is a shark, right? That's the megalodon. And you see these little rocks down here? You probably can't see it, but there's a little orange dot. That is a person next to this shark, just to give you an idea of how massive this shark is that's been somewhere in the deep for all these years, minding its own business, doing its own thing. And, from what we can get from this story, the noise pollution has gotten so bad that when all the sharks went down to try and get away from the noise and couldn't, when they came back up, this massive prehistoric megalodon comes up with it. But there's more to the story than that. It also has to do with Callum, the captain of the Capitol and the leader of the Ninth Wave, and his illness that he has, and what maybe is that going to mean for everyone else. Still really love The Massive. I think it's a really interesting book. It has interesting things to say, even if it's kind of just telling a near future history that doesn't really exist, tying in factual things with the fiction. To me, it's just a really interesting read. The artwork generally is always top notch in it, and really cool. So that's it. That's it for the No Capes this time around. Check out my shirt. I got my shirt. Science is the new rock and roll. That would be Nowhere Men. Looking forward to the next issue of that coming out at some point, because obviously it's part of my No Capes, and I just dig it. I dig this saying that supports the comic book, and I just like the saying anyway. I mean, I think that's cool because I think science is cool. But anyway, that's it. I will catch you down the road with some more no capes. Take it easy, everybody.